The age verification industry is imploding in real time right now, and the absolute funniest part is that the people actually building this massive surveillance machine, well, they are literally too sloppy and incompetent to keep it running. Like, imagine trying to forcefully demand that millions of internet users just hand over their government IDs and face scans, where security is so completely cooked that your own corporate clients can't even keep a vendor alive for 30 days. That's exactly what's happening this month, as major platforms are visibly scrambling and burning through verification middleman like it's a completely unhinged merry-go-round. Like, we're watching the industry violently churn through at least 3 different verification vendors in the span of just 5 months. Like, it's an absolute joke. Like, you got these massive tech platforms quietly testing new age check methods right now, desperately throwing things like Google Wallet checks, credit card verification, just even more, just to see what sticks. Like, the entire industry is just in a massive state of flux, with corporate connections pretty much being made and broken overnight as sketchy startups scramble to grab market share before the whole house of cards collapses. Like, it is a live ongoing farce, because instead of just admitting that collecting everyone's identity is a massive security nightmare, while platforms are just quietly swapping out their vendors again and again, expecting everyday users to just blindly follow a ridiculous trail just to find out who is actually processing their sensitive data behind the scenes. Like, the villains here aren't even the platforms anymore. Like, it's the absolutely incompetent middlemen who are tripping over their own feet and handing the internet undeniable proof that the entire business model is just broken. And if you want to know exactly why these platforms keep panicking and swapping vendors, will look no further than the absolute masterclass in corporate fumbling that was Persona. So if you haven't heard about Persona, well, they're basically the final boss of sketchy age verification vendors. They're actually backed by the founder of Palantir, fun fact. The dominoes started falling when a completely different vendor called 5CS suffered a massive leak that exposed 70k government ID images, which immediately caused clients to panic and jump ship straight over to Persona. But Persona's moment in the spotlight basically ended in disaster, because in February of this year, a group of independent security researchers completely caught them lacking when they found Persona's internal system code just sitting publicly accessible on a US government server for literally anyone to stumble across. Like, no hacking required. And when people actually looked under the hood at this exposed code, they found out that Persona wasn't just running a simple check to see if you were 18, while their system was just configured to run like so many distinct surveillance checks per verification, like 269, I believe. Like, we're talking about running casual internet users through facial recognition against literal international watch lists, like checking if you're a politician or a public figure, and a completely dystopian quote-unquote selfie suspicious entity detection system. To make it even worse, this exposed code showed that this vendor could quietly hold onto your IP address, your government ID numbers, and your full name, and even your face data for up to 3 full years. So basically, you scan your driver's license just to get into a basic chat app, and suddenly you're placed into a permanent, highly detailed biometric lineup. But the internet obviously went absolutely nuclear over this, launching concentrated attacks directly at the vendor systems, and platforms immediately dropped Persona and ran to the next random startup. But the catastrophic failures don't just stop with Persona, because the entire landscape of these third-party middlemen is just a continuous rolling disaster of exposed data and legal nightmares. Like, take Veriff, for example, another massive player in the whole digital identity space. So in December of last year, Veriff got completely breached, exposing the sensitive government issue IDs and driver's license numbers of thousands of everyday consumers. And this wasn't just like a quiet little accident that got swept underneath like the rug. Like, 3 massive class action lawsuits immediately followed the breach, dragging the company just straight through hell itself. Like, when your entire business is supposedly built on digital security and you manage to get breached and sued at the same time, well, that is just peak vendor implosion. And then somehow it gets even worse when you look at IDMerit. Like, cybersecurity researchers, well, they actually discovered a massive, completely unprotected database traced directly to IDMerit, just sitting open on the internet. This database reportedly contained full names, physical addresses, national ID numbers, and just birth dates across 26 different nations, including 203 million records from the United States itself. Now, I will be fair, IDMerit does dispute this report, officially saying that their systems were just never actually compromised and framing the whole thing as a ransom-style incident rather than a failure on their end. But honestly, even the disputed case in this industry involves hundreds of millions of sensitive records just being put at risk. Like, the sheer volume of personal data just being like tossed around by these startups is just absolutely terrifying, and it proves exactly why you should just never even trust a random third-party vendor with a scan of your passport, for example. When you actually zoom out and look at the bigger picture, well, the track record of these age verification companies, well, it goes from mildly incompetent to just like genuinely like historically bad. Like, you look at the biggest players, like names like IDMerit, Veriff, 5CA, and even more. Well, every single one of them has suffered a massive, significant security failure in barely 2 years. And let that sink in for a second. Like, 5 major verification vendors with as many as 1 billion personal records exposed between them, depending on whose count you trust. Like, 5 vendors, 1 billion records on the line. Like, that single sentence just tells you basically everything you need to know about why this technology is just a complete, utter joke. And you have to understand, like, this is not some niche problem confined to a few random apps. Like, these vendors are deeply embedded in the financial and professional internet. Like, one of the biggest players in this space, for instance, well, they had their master login keys just sitting exposed on a public dashboard for over a year. And their client lists included massive names like Uber, LinkedIn, and PayPal. So even if you completely avoid, like, I don't know, gaming stuff and like social media, but your data is still getting scooped up, processed, and fumbled by the exact same group of sloppy middlemen. Like, the people building this global surveillance machine are incredibly arrogant, acting like they are just like the ultimate gatekeepers of internet safety, when in reality they're leaving the back door wide open. Like, the very companies trying to forcefully build a dystopian digital checkpoint system are failing spectacularly under their own weight, handing everyday people the exact proof they need to fight back against these invasive policies. And all of these monumental screw-ups bring us right back to the chaos happening right now, where the surviving companies are just desperately trying to rebrand, and platforms, well, they're just scrambling to find literally anyone who won't immediately leak their users' data. But the damage from that billion record failure is just already actively haunting people in the whole real world. Like, see, the bad data that spills out of these breach verification vendors doesn't just like sit harmlessly in some dark corner of the internet. Well, it gets immediately put to work and weaponized. Like, those leaked databases, like filled with verified names, birth dates, and contact info, are right now being used as fuel for things like AI voice cloning scam calls. Like, scammers create like fake AI impersonations that are just rated as nearly as convincing as real human callers. So the ultimate irony is simply this: like, these age verification laws demand that you hand over your most sensitive physical identity documents to supposedly protect you from online harm, but the vendors are just so inept that they just immediately lose your data and directly expose you to hyper realistic AI scams. Like, it is a completely broken feedback loop of sheer incompetence. But honestly, watching the entire industry just choke on its own ambition is exactly why you shouldn't panic. The courts are slowly starting to gut the unconstitutional laws that feed these startups, and also the internet is just rejecting their services at every single turn. So the next time a website, I guess, aggressively demands that you hold your driver's license or your ID up to your webcam, well, just remember this: like, the company on the other end of the screen is probably just like a few weeks away from suffering a catastrophic data breach. So yeah, that's for this video. Like, comment, and subscribe. And yeah, I'll see you next time.